38 kilometers of concrete, open water, no land in sight. It almost wasn't built. You are looking at the world's longest bridge over open navigable water, built in 1956. Engineers had no GPS, no computer model, no blueprint, and one more problem nobody had solved before.
What gets me is they didn't just build a bridge. They invented how to build it first, right here on this lake.
Before a single pile was driven, they hit the first crisis. The lake bottom itself refused to cooperate. 30 feet of soft organic mud, bearing capacity near zero. The lake could swallow a pile driver whole. Every measurement taken by hand, every reading written in a notebook. No satellites, no sensors, just geometry. The engineers had one design, one lake to cross, and 14 months to deliver it. Lake Pontchartrain, 630 square kilometers. In a storm, it moves like a small, furious ocean. This is the story of the men who figured it out and built something that still holds 70 years later. By 1950, New Orleans was growing fast. But reaching the North Shore meant a 90-minute drive around the lake. 40,000 families lived north of the lake. Every commute was a 2-hour round trip nobody could afford to ignore. Engineers knew river bridges. But a river is narrow, anchored, predictable. A lake is none of those things. The first soil borings came back in 1952. The results stopped the project cold for almost a full year. Organic lake sediment compresses under load. It shifts under vibration. Driving a pile into it is like driving into cold porridge. Every boring sample confirmed it. The mud layer wasn't just deep in one spot. It ran for miles in every direction.
That mud is decomposed vegetation, thousands of years of it. Under load, it behaves almost like liquid. It has no backbone.
On early test drives, piles didn't sink gradually. Some were simply swallowed, disappearing into the mud in under a minute. They lost equipment on the test program. They lost time. The cost estimate climbed with every boring result that came back. The lake had one final problem nobody had budgeted for. Fog. Total disorienting whiteout fog that appeared without warning. A barge crew in mid-lake fog had no reference point, no land, no sound, nothing to navigate by except a compass. Navigation was entirely manual, position was estimated, and an error in positioning mid-lake meant driving a pile in the wrong place. The Louisiana Bridge Commission hired Modjeski and Masters, one of the most experienced bridge engineering firms in the country. Authorization came in 1953. Budget, $30 million. The deadline was implicit. The South Shore construction yard opened in Metairie. Every piece of the bridge would begin its life right here on land. The design team made the call that changed everything. Precast the piles on land. No wet concrete poured in open water. Each pile cast on shore, cured to strength, then floated out to position on a dedicated supply barge.
16 inches square, 54 feet long, pre-stressed reinforcement inside, and they needed exactly 9,500 of them in the lake.
Pile caps were cast separately, massive concrete collars designed to transfer beam load directly into the top of each pile. Every pile physically inspected before it left land. Supply runs were continuous. Barges moved in convoy. The pile-driving barge was custom-built, 1-meter draft, shallow enough to work across the lake's variable bottom depths. The pile had to enter the mud at the correct angle, 2 degrees of deviation, and the cap wouldn't seat on the beam. The hammer dropped. The pile moved, but not downward the way it should. The mud was rotating it instead of accepting it. Guide frames were redesigned twice on site. What worked on land testing failed when the barge itself flexed in the lake swell. Each blow measured. Engineers tracked how far the pile moved per drop. Piles that angled in the soft upper mud were sometimes pulled and redriven. That cost hours per pile, and every hour mattered. The pile's job was to punch through the soft mud and seat in the stiff clay at 50 feet. That clay was the only real foundation. Stiff clay at 50 feet depth. That was the bearing layer. That was what the entire bridge ultimately rests on.
Every pile was its own problem. The mud depth varied, the resistance varied. Nothing about this lake was ever consistent or predictable.
By early 1955, the pile line was advancing into the lake. They were averaging one full span every 2.5 days. Once piles were driven and capped, the beam crews followed, placing 60-foot span sections across each pile row. Each beam weighed 60 tons. Placement tolerance was ½ an inch, in open water. Grout locked beam to cap permanently. An improperly filled joint meant movement under traffic, and movement meant fatigue failure. To cut supply times, a floating precast yard was set up mid-lake. Concrete mixed, formed and cured on the water itself. They poured concrete on a barge that never stopped moving. Even a small swell changed the pour angle of every form. No shore at lunch. Workers lived on vessels for weeks. Mid-lake was a world with no exit. Total isolation. No road, no hospital, no town. If something went wrong mid-lake, help was hours away. Each completed deck section became the platform for the next. The bridge built itself forward. Heat, glare and disorientation were constant. Workers rotated off mid-lake every 10 days. Night shifts ran through good weather. Work stopped only when wind made cranes unsafe.
24 kilometers, 14 months. That's 58 meters of completed bridge every single day, in open water with 1950s equipment.
By mid-1955, the southern half was done. The North Shore crew was advancing from Mandeville to meet them. The two fronts had to meet exactly. 1 degree of error at the start meant a permanent misalignment. Optical triangulation, angles to fixed shore monuments, pure geometry by hand. It worked. One more feature, a draw span giving 8 meters of clearance for sailing vessels on the lake. The bascule hinge had to survive salt air and humidity for decades without failure. It still does. Handrails, expansion joints, road surface, all fitted section by section off the completed pile cap grid. Expansion joints let the bridge flex with temperature swings. They are its pressure relief valves. June 1956. The southbound span opened. 23 minutes to cross. The record was immediate. On opening day, drivers slowed to a crawl. Some stopped. They had never driven over open water before. Guinness confirmed it immediately. World's longest bridge over water. A record Louisiana would hold for decades.
The first toll was 93 cents. For many families in 1956, that was close to an hour's wages. The bridge changed the math of daily life.
Some drivers had panic attacks mid-bridge. Flat water on both sides looked like driving into open sky. Bare concrete deck, no shoulders, no median, 2 lanes, barely room to stop if something went wrong. Within 3 years, salt air attacked the concrete. Chloride intrusion is slow, patient, and relentless. Engineers calculated wind loads by hand, but nobody had calculated for a direct hurricane hit. September 1965. Hurricane Betsy made landfall. Winds hit the causeway at over 120 miles per hour for 6 hours. 17 spans damaged. Deck sections displaced. The draw span knocked off its seat. Engineers reached the site within 48 hours. What they documented changed every specification for the northbound span. The piles held, the caps held. What failed? The beam-to-cap connections. The beams had simply slid off. Betsy delivered one lesson: weld everything down. Every beam tie was retrofitted before reopening. Betsy's damage became the northbound span's design spec. Every failure point became a requirement to fix.
The second bridge looks almost the same from the outside, but the structural connections inside are fundamentally different from the first.
Construction of the northbound span began in 1967. Pile spacing was tightened. New pile caps had steel dowels on top. The beam was cast around them, one solid connection. Cap width up by 14 centimetres. Small change. Major difference when a 12-foot storm surge arrives. For 2 years, traffic crossed the southbound while the northbound rose beside it. 2 bridges at once. By 1969, laser alignment was available. The northbound span was among the first US water bridges to use laser positioning. Laser transit, millimeter accuracy at 3 kilometres. The northbound beams were redesigned for longer clear spans, fewer piles per kilometre while carrying higher load ratings. Road surface upgraded from bare concrete to textured aggregate, better grip in rain and fog. The final northbound pile was driven in 1968. Over 4,700 additional piles. The northbound span opened in 1969. 4 lanes now, capacity doubled.
When both spans opened, the North Shore population of St. Tammany Parish doubled in under 10 years. The bridge did that by itself.
Lake Pontchartrain produces radiation fog with almost zero warning. Cold air meets warm. It arrives in minutes. Visibility sensors are now mounted every mile along the full 38-kilometre span. The control centre monitors every sector simultaneously. Under 200 feet of visibility, the bridge closes. That threshold has never once been adjusted. When it closes, traffic backs up for miles. It reopens only when every zone clears simultaneously. For decades, every crossing logged manually. Toll revenue funded maintenance. The bridge paid for itself from day one. Salt, sediment, debris, constant accumulation. Marine maintenance is not optional. It is why the bridge still stands. Every few years, divers inspect every submerged pile, checking for spalling, cracks, and exposed rebar. Chloride enters hairline cracks and corrodes rebar inside. Uncorrected, it splits concrete from the inside out. Damaged piles get epoxy repair, then fibre-reinforced polymer wrap. Maintenance runs year-round. In 70 years, no span section replaced. Repair has always been enough. Original 1956 railings still in service. 70 years old, marine-coated, still compliant. Peak flow is 8 to 9 in the morning, southbound. The bridge handles both directions simultaneously. August 2005. Katrina made landfall as Category 3. Lake Pontchartrain surge reached 12 feet above normal. The North Shore flooded completely. Mandeville, Covington, Lacombe, all underwater. Both approach ramps submerged, water at both ends, but the bridge structure itself stayed above the surge. Engineers reached the bridge by boat 3 days after Katrina. What they found surprised everyone.
See this line? That is where the lake reached during Katrina. The bridge deck was under 2 feet of surge water at this point.
Mud and debris on the surface. Zero structural damage below. Pile caps seated. Beams locked. All holding. All 2,243 spans checked. Every cap seated. Every beam tied. The causeway reopened to emergency traffic within 3 weeks. It was the first road link restored into New Orleans after the storm. Without the causeway, rescue convoys would have taken hours longer through flooded surface routes. Time that people did not have. Thousands walked out. The bridge carried foot traffic for days, never designed for it, held anyway. In the aerial footage, the causeway is the only dry road connecting the city. It is everything. The approach ramps took longer to clear. Katrina hit the approaches harder than the open spans. Original 1956 piles showed zero structural compromise after Katrina. Louisiana DOTD declared Katrina a full design validation. The 1955 engineers were right about everything.
Every lesson from 1955 held. Every pile, every connection, every design decision they made without computers, Mayo, all of it survived Katrina.
Today, 42,000 vehicles cross the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway daily. It never closes for scheduled maintenance. The Greater New Orleans Expressway Commission operates the bridge, 250 staff, 24 hours a day. Maintenance runs under live traffic. Lane closures are planned down to the minute to keep flow moving during peak hours. South Shore, Metairie, Jefferson Parish. North Shore, Mandeville, St. Tammany Parish. 23 miles of open water, bridged. At mile 12, no land visible in any direction. The most complete open water exposure in American highway driving. Every mile marker and road marking is repainted on a 3-year cycle. The same crews rotate through the full bridge length. China's Jiaozhou Bay Bridge took the length record in 2011, but it crosses on viaducts, not open navigable water. The Guinness classification remains longest bridge over open navigable water.
Every long-span water crossing built after 1956 borrowed techniques from what these engineers worked out here. Every single one of them.
Emmett Harrington directed the project. He went in as an administrator. He came out as a builder. The original South End toll house was preserved when electronic tolling replaced it in 2014. A concrete footnote. Modern acoustic testing confirms pile integrity without excavation or diving. Sound waves travel through the pile and return the truth. 70-year-old precast concrete in a saltwater lake, and the signal comes back clean every time they test it. This is what engineering without a safety net looks like. No computers, no GPS, no second design. 14 months, no second chance. 38.6 kilometers, 2 spans, 9,500 piles, 70 years old. Not one structural failure, still standing.
The thing that stays with me, they didn't know for certain it would work. The lake had no precedent. They built it anyway, and it held.
The men who built it are mostly gone, but their work carries 42,000 vehicles across this lake every single day. Cost, $46.8 million for the south span, $30 million more for the north. The value now is incalculable. Those first drivers had no idea they were crossing the most technically original bridge in the history of American infrastructure. Today's drivers cross in 20 minutes and think nothing of it. That is the exact measure of how completely the engineering succeeded. Built by men who trusted their math more than they feared the lake. And in 70 years, the lake has never once proved them wrong.
If you drive this bridge and it feels like nothing, Div, if it just feels like a road pits, that is exactly how good engineering is supposed to feel.